Hallo, Martin va agus fescar ma. Fáilte go Gaelic le Joseph is Misha Joseph, hami an alaba, hami a fuireach an paslich. Ha briach an dú ach ha fuar. Cíad mille fáilte show podcast acum. Ha jansachich Gaelic. Chaneel me ag ober anju je saharne. Chaneel me I'm not ag ober at work today. Anju today. Chaneel me ag ober anju I'm not at work today. Anju je saharne. Today is Saturday. Well, I promised you a podcast to review lesson 5 of our old lessons, and that's the one which looks completely at lenition. Now, for those of you just joining us for the first time, don't be scared by the word lenition. Lenition is when the letter H is inserted after some words in Gaelic. When I say after, I mean it's inserted in after the first letter of some words in Gaelic. And when it's inserted in, it changes the pronunciation of the word. It's kind of like if you imagine the word telephone, phone, okay? There's an H there, so the pronunciation is F, okay? But if you took that H away, the pronunciation would be pone. Yeah, so it's a similar kind of thing. We put an H in after some letters, and it's there to make pronunciation more smooth in Gaelic. And in fact, what it does is just cause major confusion, I think. But that's what we're looking at today. So we're going to look at what letters cause lenition, what words cause lenition, and also how lenition works. Okay, so this is going to be a little bit painful and a little bit technical because getting used to all of the sounds in Gaelic is difficult anyway. So let's get off and begin with lenition. When I've mentioned lenition before, I've said that after some letters of the previous word, the next word lenite. That's not really true. It's all about the previous word, not the previous letter that causes lenition. So lenition does take some getting used to, as there are a few particular things to keep in mind. Consonants which always lenite are B, C, F, G, M, and P. However, the consonants D, T, and S don't usually lenite if the word before them ends in an N. And that's what I was referring to when I was talking about letters in the word before. Also, words which begin with SG, SM, SP, and ST never lenite. Well, that's just enough to confuse all of us, isn't it? So I really don't recommend you try to learn this in this way. The best way is just to see lenition when it happens, and when it happens you can look at the rule and say, oh yeah, oh I see, it's the letter B. That's why it's leniting. Or, oh yeah, the previous word ended in an N, so that's not leniting. You see, that's the best way to learn this. So what to do is to try to observe lenition. But I really don't think it's a good idea to try to learn all of this because it'll leave you more confused, and by tomorrow morning at this time I can guarantee you'll have forgotten it. Alright, so what causes lenition then? Well, when talking about possession, you need to lenite after using mo. Now we've come across this already. Movak, for example, So mac is son, vac after you put the H in after mo. Okay, so movac, and we already spoke before about the preposition a-cat and a-chat. We spoke about that previously. There's loads of examples, and I don't really want to go through these. I would rather we simply encounter these as we find them. Okay. Words which come after possessives then, always lenite. Words which come after prepositions, like out of, vo, from. Do you remember we were talking the other day about where you live? Hami a fuireach, for example. I live in. Okay, well, if in the question koas a hashiv, it's where do you come out of? That's a literal meaning. Okay, so if you were answering hami a, okay, you need to lenite. Okay, also from, which we haven't met the prepositions yet, so there's no point in reading all of these, but basically the prepositions for out of, from, of, for, under, without, okay, and also the word for like are all lenited. You don't know these words yet, but you'll be coming across them. All I want to do is to tell you that lenition is very common in Gaelic. So you can see an H popping up, and when it does, you need to be aware of the sounds. Okay. When you're describing an object, okay, they also lenite. Okay, so if an adjective is there, the noun will be lenited. As you already know, lenition happens from modifiers. Very, gle, va, very good. Hamigu, ma, very good. So it's a little bit difficult. And finally, words also lenite from numerals. Okay, so if you're saying there's one table, a board, which is table, becomes vord. Okay, so just as an example, ha un vord, vord. Okay, so board is table, ha un vord after the number 1, and it continues with all of the numbers. We'll be doing numbers in the coming lessons. Okay. For those of you who are just joining us, in case you're wondering what we're doing, and in a very slow way, this is Gaelic with Joseph. We're going over the very basics of Gaelic, and we're going over the very basics of Gaelic very slowly. Gaelic is a little bit mysterious for many people, and therefore this series of YouTube clips is designed for people who want to learn Gaelic very slowly, without pressure, without running through anything. Perhaps people who've encountered Gaelic in the past and they've just simply run away from it. And I have to be honest and say Gaelic is a very, very intimidating language if you've never encountered it before. And the reason for that is simply because it sounds very nice, but when you see it written, the words don't match the sounds. Okay, so when you hear something and you see it, it looks completely different, and that's partly because of lenition, I think. Not that it changes in spoken from writing, of course, but it's these little things that make it a bit more difficult. So if you're looking for a faster way to learn, I really suggest that you move on and go somewhere else. There's a perfectly good, fast YouTube channel, Gaelic with Jason, an American boy who's running through Gaelic at top speed, so you can join him. Here we're doing it the slow way, and we're going over things again and again, before we move on, just to make sure that you catch them and that you understand them. I'm okay with Gaelic, but I'm studying it just as much for my benefit as for yours, because most of the Gaelic I know or knew is a little bit out of date. Also, there's little mistakes that all Gaelic speakers have. I was mentioning yesterday about ha-e-fuair or ha-e-fuair, and there's such inconsistencies that you'll see across written texts and speakers. But don't worry about these too much. A lot of them are simply different dialects of Gaelic. Standardized Gaelic is kind of a new thing. Anyway, let's not get into that. Let's get back to lenition. This is perhaps one of the most frightening yet basic things that you'll come across. So what we're saying is that if you have a word beginning with B, C, F, G, M or P, then they lenite when they encounter some letters, or more so when they encounter some words. Okay, D, T and S don't usually lenite if the word before them ends in an N. Okay, and words beginning with SG, SM, SP and ST never lenite. My point is, don't try to remember this. Okay, just know that it's there. You can maybe make a little note to come back to visit this podcast in the future. When you talk about possession, you have to lenite. So Mac becomes vac. Okay, so if you just think about the word Mac for a moment, M-A-C, put mo in front of it, it becomes M-H-A-C, mo vac. Mo vac, my son. Okay, likewise with the word thaigh. Okay, but to be honest with you, rather than trying to say mo and then a lenited word, like high, for example, so thaigh becomes high. So let's just look at that for a second before we go any further. So if I say thaigh, okay, a house, mo high, the H is gone in after the T, and that makes it silent. Yeah, you would think it would be thigh, wouldn't you? No, it's not. It's I. It would become more I. Okay, so you can see here this is a little bit unusual. There's also Dòmhnall, your house. Dòmhnall, mohai, my house. Dòmhnall, your house. Your house. Dòmhnall. And standalone, for example, agantai, at home. Okay, so mohai, dòmhnall. This is because the H goes in after the T. It doesn't create TH, a th sound. It makes it silent. Alright, so that's just a little introduction to lenition. And of course there's other examples after prepositions as well. And what I was saying earlier is after adjectives, the same thing happens. Okay, so it's very important to remember this. Another example is from the modifier gleva, very good. Hamiguma, I am very good. So you can see without clay, the H is not required there. Okay, and also my last example that I gave was from the number. So if you have a number of things, okay, we'll be doing numbers in another lesson. Board on board. Okay, BH becomes V. So we've established here that BH becomes V, TH becomes silent, okay, MH becomes like a V sound. Really, there's no reason for you to worry about this. We'll keep going over this and I'll be pointing out lenition as we move forward, so there's no reason for you to be concerned about it. All right. So there we are. That's really all I wanted to say today. I don't want to make this too long. I think we're already into 15 minutes, so there we are. Okay, so I hope this has helped. Very quick final recap. The letter H goes in after B, C, F, G, M, and P. D, T, and S do not lenite. If the word before them ends in an N, okay. S, G, S, M, S, P, and S, T never lenites, okay. Possession, if you're not using the akam, akat method, something's at me. If you're using the mo, which is usually things which are really attached to you, like bodily parts, for example, then that causes lenition. Okay, mo, da as well, my or your. Also from prepositions, out of, from, of, for, under, without. We haven't looked at those, but we will encounter them, so don't worry. I think you've already heard me using gu, gu, and you already know that doesn't lenite. Adjectives, okay, so they also cause lenition, and so do modifiers like gley, very, and there's many others of those as well. All you need to know right now is it exists. Likewise with numerals, numbers cause lenition. An example I gave you there was board becoming vord after a number. Okay, so those are the general rules about lenition. It's one of the most difficult things in Gaelic. I would say probably 90% of Gaelic people, native speakers or not, don't use lenition properly. You'd have to be quite an expert at Gaelic to use your lenition properly. But be aware. Okay, and if you're in any doubt, check. Please, please, please don't try to learn this word for word. We will encounter them together. But that's the general idea. Okay, I hope you've enjoyed this. And until our next lesson, cheery and rasta.